Does his silence mean it's over? Maybe, maybe not. We're going to dive into this conversation today. It occurs to me that you almost need a PhD in human behavior to understanding human pair bonding because it's rather complicated. And of course, we can look at animal biology type advice to suggest that it relates to humans, but I think humans become way more complex, particularly in midlife, which I say midlife is after baby making years and before retirement. So if you're in the ages of 42 to 69, that's the demographic I speak to. Now, here's the thing. Women have been conditioned to believe that men chase women. And when women chase, that means that's her clue that he's serious about a relationship. But let's break that down for a second. Are they really chasing sex, or are they chasing a fully committed relationship? And I want you to think about that for a second. Are they chasing a fully committed relationship, or are they chasing sex? In addition, men in their 20s and 30s operate so differently than men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s. Midlife changes the whole ball game. You can throw out most dating advice that's geared to a 20 and 30-year-old population because in midlife we have divorce. Roughly about 75% of singles in the dating marketplace over 45 years are divorced. We also have health issues. We've had multiple relationships. We might have elderly parents in assisted living facilities. And we could even have the emotional effects that happen when raising children and the complication that comes from raising children. So I think it's kind of important to recognize in midlife, most men aren't operating from a place of seeking a wife, okay? Let me repeat that. They're not operating from a place of seeking a wife. They seek companionship, they seek connection, they seek sex. But this is where it gets really tricky, because when you're operating from that place of intentionality that you want a life partner, it's so different than someone who just wants that companionship and connection. Because when someone just wants companionship and connection, and by the way, this is true for women as equal as it is to men, it can be rather complicated, because I think we humans are struggling to bond from a long-term perspective. We're not looking at it from a long-term perspective. I think a lot of women, as well as men, operate from this vantage point. And when you're operating from a vantage point of just living in the now, living in the moment, well, guess what happens? Fear, uncertainty, unknown. Certainly, chaos when it comes to one's feelings might cause a person to become silent. Yeah, that's right. Fear of the unknown, fear of their or complications from past relationships, and certainly even our fantasy of the way relationships can be has created a lot of turmoil for men and women alike. I think in this chaos, we find ourselves deer in the headlights. And when a person is in the deer in the headlights phase, they don't know how to operate. I think men as well as women struggle to really identify what are they feeling on the inside when it comes to a partnership-based relationship. You see, humans come to the world, not come to the world, but when an adult comes to the world in their full sovereignty, actually partnering with another person requires making compromises. It might require making sacrifices. And this is where it gets tricky for midlife folks, because oftentimes they felt like in their past relationships, they made sacrifices, they made compromises. And so they enter into relationships at an older age going, I don't want to compromise, I don't want to settle. But you see, the challenge is they're not operating from their full sovereignty as a person, because the real joy and benefit in relationship goes beyond that companionship, that connection and sex. It's about leaning with your heart, leaning with love, being of service to another person. But when we're operating from this myopic place, what happens is people get stuck in fear, the unknown, uncertainty. And then oftentimes they become silent because they haven't identified what might be going on inside of them within the relationship. Maybe you have a difference in relationship. Maybe one person likes to do one thing and another person likes to do another thing. And they're having conflict in that moment. They're having a difference. And I don't need to spell out what they are, but I want you to recognize when a couple has differences, real differences might be, I was watching a John Gottman video and they were illustrating how she doesn't like her partner wearing an iPhone watch. Okay. Now, this was an obscure thing, probably something that you go is trivial, but she was upset that he's wearing it and he's sharing that he's wearing it because he needs it for his health. Again, this is a trivial type of example, but this were two people that came to the table with differences. Now, what ends up happening is when we operate from a place of we agree to disagree, well, oftentimes when you have differences, you're in a state of tolerance. Now, the problem with tolerance is when you're in a state of tolerance, there's going to be resentment that comes up. So when two people have differences, it's important to understand the other person's point of view. It was important for him to have her understand that I need this for my safety. And I don't know what she was complaining about in this particular case. Again, this was a cute little video to demonstrate differences, but to understand why this might be important to her. I think it's important if you want to come at it from a place of love, come at it from a place of understanding. Now, maybe when you come to a place of understanding, and maybe you need to take a little time apart to recognize this, and I don't mean days and weeks, I just mean maybe a short period of time, is to look at and understand the acceptance of what your partner may be going through. I think when it comes to acceptance is to recognize that we are all operating to some degree with past hurts, from past relationships, fears that may stem from our childhood, from abandonment or anxiety that may come up. And also the other challenge we have is we've operated, at least here in the United States, from a fantasy perspective of what a relationship should look like. We operate from a place of fantasy. And because of fantasy, because of past hurts, because of fears, we oftentimes become afraid to speak up when there's a difference. And that's what might cause a man to go silent. Now, another reason why a man might, and so in those particular cases, I would say what's most important is come to a place of understanding between the two of you, to a place of understanding. And when you come from a place of understanding and acceptance, it may not mean that this is the end of a relationship. Now, there's another reason why men go silent. And this is something you have to ask yourself. Is his life in chaos or is it thriving? When a man's life is in chaos, oftentimes the ground underneath them doesn't feel solid to be in a significant relationship. If a man's life doesn't feel solid underneath him, it's going to make it very difficult for him to lean into a serious relationship, to lean into a level of commitment that you may be desirous of in relationship. So if a man's life is in somewhat chaos, somewhat turmoil, there's uncertainty, maybe he's going through a divorce, maybe he has issues going on in his professional life, his silence might mean that he is not capable of going much deeper into a relationship, but beyond companionship, connection, and sex. So I'm bringing all this up because I want everyone to ask themselves, are you looking for a partnership-based relationship or are you looking for a surface level relationship? I know dating is designed to be attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection. But ultimately, aren't you doing this for an end goal? Don't you want a partner in your life? If you do, then I invite everyone to start asking radically honest questions early on. Now, I know that might seem like, Jonathan, I'm not supposed to interview someone on a date. I disagree with that. The dating process is an interview process. It's not about having fun. It's about asking, are we on the same page on things? Yeah, it doesn't mean you can't do this in a fun, lively way, but that's the whole purpose of dating. If two people met through a dating app, you can say to yourselves, hey, look, I don't know if you're like me, but I don't want to date. I don't want to waste time in the dating process. Do you mind if we ask each other some serious questions just to see if we're on the same page, if we're on a fit for one another? Because if we are on the same page and chemistry can, if we have attraction for one another, it can ignite this relationship. I think it's important to know, what are your must-haves for you individually? What is most important to you to determine, is this person serious about wanting a serious relationship, or are they just seeking that companionship, connection, and sex? When a person is operating from a place of uncertainty, chaos, fear, they're going to freeze up. They're going to become silent, or worse, they're even going to pull away from you through that silence. It's because you should, from the very beginning of the dating process, you should talk about, how did we get here? Look at it from, how did we get here? What's our past? How did we get to where we're at? And then examine the present. Where are we? Look at the present from this dating experience. But more importantly, where do we want to go? Where do we want to go from this experience? I think this should be an ongoing conversation for the first 3 to 6 months at a minimum, to determine if you're on the same page with one another. Why are we so afraid to talking about the relationship? But Jonathan, it may scare a guy off. By the way, it's 11:11 on the video clock. Why are we so worried about scaring someone away? I think it's time to dive into the deeper conversation of, how did we get here? Looking at our past and saying, how did we get to where we're at? Where are we? Like, where do we want to be right now? But more importantly, where do we want to be in the future? Now, here's the thing, ladies, and pay attention to this, okay? Love bombers will over exaggerate the future. They will over exaggerate the future. Love bombers are caught in the fantasy. They really don't have their feet on the ground. All they care about is the physical connection most often, and the high that comes, but they'll over exaggerate the future. Now, if you're not familiar with love attachment style, you may want to do some research on it. There's something, you may want to read the book Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. I recommend this because avoidance will avoid talking about the future. Anyone who avoids talking about the future from a real place of curiosity, from a place of seeing we're on the same page, that's a recipe for disaster, because avoidance, struggle, opening up emotionally. They don't want to talk about the future. They only want to live in that companionship, connection, and sex place. But something I call grower builders, they want to forge a future from a very calm, grounded place. But more importantly, they want to do it from a co-creative place. In other words, two people operating from the vantage point of, where could this go, looking at it from an optimistic point of view, from a grounded point of view, from a rational point of view, from an objective point of view, not the fantasy the way the love bomber, and not the avoidant the way the avoidant does it. So does this silence mean it's over? Well, a lot of times it's just fear masquerading as, in a place of uncertainty. And I think this is the opportunity to begin having deeper conversations about the purpose of the relationship. What's the real purpose of this relationship? Do we see a real future together? And certainly visit from a standard point of, how do we get here? Where are we? Where do we want to go? Now, could it mean it's over? Usually within the first 6 weeks, someone who comes on strong physically usually fades. If it comes on strong for the first 6 weeks, he's usually fading the next 6 weeks thereafter. But those that build a platform of trust between the two of them, and they build it under this platform of, how did we get here? Where are we? Where are we going? Have the greatest chance for relationship success. And that's my invitation for you all. And you have to become your own matchmaker of sorts. You have to do your vetting process. You can't expect the man to do this for you. You have to do it for yourself. And all right. So I hope that helps you understand the difference between the guy that it might be over and one worth investing in. All right. I hope you found value in this video. If you did, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Wait, did I just say that? Also, if you want to connect with me directly, There's links below. Schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's links to join my group and all that good stuff in the show notes. All right, I'm going to wrap up this video as I always do. First off, give myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Barrick of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love if that's okay. I'm asking you to turn to someone, pet, a teddy bear, a pillow, and give it or them a hug of love, because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. Thanks a bunch. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.